Okay, so finishing where I left off, the next is the mesosystem. For this system, I focused on the interaction between the home and the community. So specifically for my subject, the interaction between her home life and the community was poor. Um, there weren't many community resources that she could take advantage of, and there weren't also any programs put in place to act as like a safe haven. Like I said before, one of the community institutions that she was really involved in, which was her local church, was the place where she was sexually assaulted. The next is the exosystem. I focused on the media that was broadcast around World War II and the Depression. The outside media really focused on the depravity of the war and the deprivation that the Great Depression caused back at home. So that also led to that was another factor, the tie-in for her development that led to some of her early failures. And then if we look at the larger system, the macro system, we can just look at the overall economy was poor, and also the fact that because she was an African American and there were very limited resources for her racial group specifically, this kind of tied into all the other systems. The limited economy tied into the fact that there were safety concerns due to starvation and limited resources, which could tie into the interaction between home and community. There was no programs to safeguard her against the economy and the Great Depression and the war, and that trickled all the way down to the interaction between home. When I looked at the theory limitations, I looked at the limitations with Erikson's overall development model. For this stage, for stage 4, it focused on the time where children play and learn, but it did not focus on any of the outside environmental factors. So they didn't tie into how people or children play and learn, how that's going to be different when they're growing up during a time of war or a time of great poverty. It also didn't take in consideration gender differences. Back then, how boys and girls were raised was completely different. For my subject, how she was raised greatly differed from how her brothers were raised. The next thing is race. For Erikson's theory, they didn't take in consideration the development for African American children and how their development was based around segregation and oppression from their overall society. So that was not taken into consideration at all during his development of his theory, and I've decided to tie in the my theory of the ecological theory because I really wanted to focus on how these outside factors all came together for her development. So that was one of the reasons, or that was one of the biggest limitations I found for Erikson's theory. And that is actually the end of my presentation. So for my resources or references, I just included Rogers' book, Human Behavior in a Social Environment, and the interview I did for my subject. So that is all.